Showtime. Good evening. I'd like to call this public hearing to order. My name is Pete Galloway, your hearing officer today. I'm a consultant with the Kentucky School Plant Managers Association, and I've been selected as hearing officer by the Hopkins County Board of Education on February 15, 2022, to conduct this public hearing. This hearing is being held pursuant of 702 KAR 1001, which are the implementation guidelines for the Kentucky School Facilities Planning Manual. This public hearing is for the purpose of hearing and documenting testimony. We will document any public comments. I will in no way try to sway public opinion or comment on the proposed plan. This local state board hearing is now convened. Copies of the local planning committee and board approved district facility amended plan have been available for review in Hopkins County. It was properly advertised at least 14 days prior to the hearing in the local newspaper. Immediately following this public hearing, I will compose a hearing report on the template approved and provided by the Kentucky Department of Education, which will be submitted to the Hopkins County Board of Education for their approval. Once approved, the locally adopted DFP will be forwarded to the Kentucky Department of Education for approval from the Kentucky Board of Education at a state board meeting. The process was started by the Hopkins County Board of Education determining the need to amend the current district facility plan. As outlined by the regulation, they requested permission from the Kentucky Department of Education to amend the current plan. Permission was granted. The architectural firm of Sherman, Carter, Barnhart was hired by the board and their work was completed. The board then reconvened the local planning committee. The first local planning committee meeting was held on January 25th at 5 o'clock Central Standard Time here at the Career and Technical Center. There was a quorum present. Superintendent Amy Smith welcomed the group. Marty Klein, Assistant Superintendent, was elected as a new chairperson to the group. Steve Gillum was selected as chairperson of the group in 2019, but since that time has left the district or is no longer with the district. I shared a brief overview at that meeting of the DFP amendment process. Marty Klein shared with the group that their packets included information relating to the amendment process, a tentative timeline, and the current district facility plan, which was approved again in 2019. He briefly discussed that plan and some of the items that have been completed since that time. Justin McElfresh and Andrew Owen, the district's architects, again representing Sherman Carter Barnhart architectural firm, shared with the LPC information that they had learned when visiting the district's facilities. Each school was compared to what KDE considers a model program. The architects then considered how much it would cost to renovate each facility to bring it in line with model program standards. They noted that 3 facilities that would be the most difficult and costly to renovate was South Hopkins Middle School, Earlington Elementary School, and West Hopkins School. Following that presentation, the district's fiscal agent, Baird Public Finance, shared with the group the district's financial status. Mark Rollins told the group that once the district's debt obligation is met each year, there remains $22.8 million in bonding potential available, which will allow the district to do some meaningful things. He also shared that with the local planning committee that federal funding had become available to the district in the amount of $8 to $10 million that could be used toward facility construction and renovation. These funds were referred to as ESSER funds and must be spent by September 2024. After some discussion among groups, it was determined that there would be between 27 and $28 million available for renovation and new construction. Construction costs are at an all-time high, and it was noted that the district's enrollment is said to be trending downward slightly. It was decided that the architect would take the information that had been presented and come back to the next LPC meeting with a draft district facility plan reflecting that data. The second LPC meeting was held on February 3rd, 2022 at 5 p.m. That meeting was held virtually due to inclement weather across the state. Or across Western Kentucky. There were 15 members of the LPC present, which constituted a quorum. The minutes were approved. I shared that at the last meeting, the architects were asked to bring a draft DFP back to the group, which reflected the findings of their facility visits, as they were asked to determine which facilities were the most problematic regarding condition and potential renovations. The proposal designated South Hopkins Middle School, Arlington Elementary School as transitional centers, meaning restricted funds and bonding funds would not be able to be spent at these facilities. The plan identified Southside Elementary as a site for an addition and renovation, moving the middle school from South Hopkins Middle to that facility, as well as moving some students from Arlington Elementary to that facility. Southside Elementary would become a large preschool through 8 center. There was some discussion relating to potential purchasing and renovating of an existing facility to be used as a central office. I stated that the LPC committee was a cross-section of the district and the community who were expected to provide input regarding facilities. Their job was to approve the draft and then send it to KDE for their review to be sure that it followed all regulations and guidelines. KDE would review the draft and send it back to the LPC with our recommendations for a final vote, then to be sent to the Hopkins County Board of Education for their review and approval. Mr. Fox said that the goal of the Board of Education was to identify the district's financial position and to do what is needed to improve buildings to provide what is best for the students here in Hopkins County. He said that the board did not want to raise taxes. He also said that the recent tornado had really brought to light the need of protection for our students and the community. The board hopes that the ESSER funds could be used to address this. Following the second LPC meeting, the first public forum was called to order at 6 p.m. Since that meeting was virtual, Mr. Klein explained how participants could interact with the group. I again shared with the group the process of amending the district facility plan. I told the group that the district personnel, the architects, and the fiscal agent had shared the information needed to develop the draft plan. I stated that the public forums are necessary to give the general public the opportunity to ask questions and to share comments. No one indicated that they wanted to speak at that forum, so it was therefore adjourned. The third LPC meeting was held on February 10th. It's called to order at 5:01 p.m. by Mr. Klein. The roll call showed that a quorum was present. Instructions were given to those members that were attending virtually as to how they could participate in the meeting using the chat feature. I reviewed pertinent information from previous meetings. Justin McElfresh of Sherman Carter Barnhart again was introduced. He said there wasn't many changes in the draft district facility plan after being reviewed by the Kentucky Department of Education. They added the wording to become a transitional center under South Hopkins Middle and Arlington Elementary. Southside is indicated to become a permanent preschool through 8 center. Renovations for Arlington and South Hopkins Middle School have been crossed out and cost estimates removed from the plan. There are a number of items of renovation to Southside Elementary to bring it to a preschool through 8 center. There's a slight change on the central office that would allow the district to look at purchasing an existing facility and an addition rather than building an entirely new facility. Also, square footage is added, excuse me, to the auxiliary gyms that were already in the plan to allow for storm shelters. There was some further discussion relating to various parts of the plan, and there was some discussion on a couple of items that are not in the current plan or its amendment. A motion by Mr. Stone and seconded by John Wells to approve the amended plan as presented followed. There being no further discussion, the vote to approve the plan passed unanimously, 15-0. Mr. Klein shared with the LPC that a public forum would follow the meeting and would be called to order at 6 p.m. I shared the remaining steps in the process, including the public hearing information. Following that, the meeting was adjourned. Then the public forum was called to order at 6 p.m., and there was a quorum of LPC members present. I explained again the purpose of the forum and that this was the second public forum. I also explained that those attending would need to use the chat feature on the Zoom presentation. The draft plan was then pulled up on the Zoom screen, and copies were available for those attending in person. There was a sign-in sheet for those who wished to speak. Those who wish to speak on Zoom were instructed to, again, use the chat feature when they wanted to speak. No one in attendance signed up to speak, but 3 individuals on Zoom chose to speak. Following the comments, Mr. Klein said the draft plan will be submitted to KDE. He said that the Hopkins County Board will hold a special meeting at 5:30 p.m. on February the 15th here at the CTC. He stated that if the board approves the plan, they'll appoint a hearing officer who will conduct a public hearing on March the 3rd at 5:30 p.m. here at the CTC. Comments can be shared also in writing or in person. At its special board meeting, 5:30 on February 15th at the Career and Technical Center, the Hopkins County Board unanimously accepted the amended district facility plan by a 5-0 vote. They appointed myself as hearing officer to conduct this hearing this afternoon. At this point, the board and the LPC are extremely satisfied with the amended district facility plan. There have been many hours devoted to research, to developing, and to revising and amending the plan. I will now open the floor for any comments or accept any written remarks related to the newly amended district facility plan. We do have a sign-in sheet. There are 5 individuals who have signed up to speak. We can add to that if it's necessary. We'll just start, and I do have one written comment that will be added to the record. The first person that signed up is Miss Katie McLaughlin.
My name is Katie McLaughlin, and I'm a 3rd grade student at Arlington Elementary School. This facility plan is just that, a plan and a vision that will destroy our southern Hopkins County community. Mr. Galloway, you stated on January the 25th that our goal was to do what was best for all of our students in Hopkins County. We're not doing that. The proposed plan is to use ESSER funds to combine 3 schools whose population as of 2018 was 1,209. These funds were designated to prevent and mitigate COVID-19. But instead, you think it's in the best interest to put all these students under one roof? The proposal, you're putting the students in one building, which is likely to increase the spread of airborne illnesses, which is a direct contradiction of the purpose of these funds. When Mr. McElfresh was asked why Arlington was considered to be one of the top 3 schools to be closed, his response was, it was some of his professional judgment, and it was the aging of the building system. My response to that statement is, why are we only taking into consideration the facilities on the south end of our county? Grapevine and West Broadway schools were both built in 1955, and these facilities are both older than Arlington. By closing these 2 schools, we could create a Madisonville City Elementary School that would solve our aging infrastructure issues and provide a better solution to the transportation nightmare that you are going to have if you continue with your proposal. My question is to you tonight. If we did not have these funds coming from the federal government, would we be doing this? Can you guarantee me that the students at Arlington will continue to receive the quality of education that they are currently receiving? As it stands tonight, they are at the top of the district. It has been for several years. Actually, in 2020 and 2021, they were second in the district on pay prep assessments. By closing our southern Hopkins County schools, you're not only affecting Arlington, Southside, and South Middle, but you're affecting all students in Hopkins County and will be required to redistrict the county to balance student-teacher ratios. Currently, this proposal takes into account aging infrastructure. It does not address transportation issues that we already have, the quality of education for our children, or our children's safety. It was said that the school board is trying to maximize their financial opportunities and learning experience for student and staff without raising our taxes. While I appreciate this fiscal responsibility by our current board members, you're not doing what's best for Hopkins County. As a parent of a student that will be affected, you haven't answered any of our questions that we've asked. One thing I do know is that transportation, whether it be by bus or pickup, will have major implications at this new school. Students and school safety will be compromised with over 1,000 students in one school. This school will have less social distancing and will be more than 20 minutes from the nearest hospital if a situation ever arises. One mission, one team, one mission, one community is the model of Hopkins County Schools. There is no team, no defined mission, and definitely not one community. This county has been split for years. While our school board has closed many of our southern county schools, including Morton Gap, Nortonville, White Plains, and St. Charles, you can see that these towns have suffered the consequences. They've died. Arlington Elementary stepped up on December the 11th and rallied around all of our communities, and now you want to close it. There has been no transparency with decisions made from the Hopkins County School Board for years, and that stops tonight. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. McLaughlin. Ms. Karen Groves.
Hello, my name is Kay Groves. My husband Roy and I are grandparents of an Irvington Elementary third grade. And no, you're not guardian grandparents like some, nor grandparents who have taken on the role of raising grandchildren through adoption or whatever the reason. We're just blessed to be loving grandparents who are at a point in our lives that we've had the time to be helpful grandparents. And we try to do that. And we try to stay aware of what's happening in the classroom at Arlington with our granddaughter, and now what's happening in Hopkins County school system that will be affecting our granddaughter. And I'm not here just as a grandparent though, but a large part is because my husband and I are property owners, which in turn makes us property taxpayers, which then of course makes us payers of school tax. And if you breathe hard and swallow hard, like we do when you get your tax bill, you know that your property tax has a big portion of it that is school board tax. Our tax bill is made up about 3/4 of the bill being Hopkins County school taxes. We only have one grandchildren in the system. But the tax bill is not determined by how many children you have in the system, but by the value of the property, as you know. As a taxpayer that funds our school system, I would like our school board to be more transparent in letting parents know, letting teachers know, and letting us taxpayers know sooner what is being planned. We didn't find out just 1 week what was going on, and then the next week it was voted on. For working parents, working teachers, and taxpayers, That's not enough time for the information to trickle down to most of us. I don't do Facebook a lot. I don't see it on Facebook. Our newspaper is not as good getting to us as it used to be. So if you don't have access to public information, there has to be some other way that the school board can let people know what is going on a little bit better and a little bit faster. And lastly, the point I have, I think the most important point that my husband and I think of when we're going into debt. The thing that we do is we pay off our large debt before we accumulate another large debt. But what I'm thinking is, why not finish handsome with our free money we're getting? I know that with the tornado and the price of things rising, we're not going to have near enough money to pay it off as it is. And we are going to be needing more money, and we want them to have all the bills and the people that they need there before we start on another project. And the project that we start on needs to be the best for our end of the county. And we want what we are doing to be well thought out and shown to the taxpayer for a good length of time before any vote's made on it. It doesn't need to be put in the paper one week and voted on by the school board the next week. You need to get public, you need to get parents, and you need to get teacher opinions, and you need to listen. These are the folks who will have their lives either made easier or harder by the decisions you make. So you need to listen very carefully. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Groves. Ms. Holly Sharber.
Hello, my name is Holly Sharber, and I'm a student at Arlington and at South. The board has a mission of unite as one team to learn and inspire, and a motto of one team, one mission, one community. However, we are a county divided, and that divide has only worsened with news of the closing of Arlington and South. Although this board has followed the KDE standards for LPC planning, as a parent and a member of this community, it does not feel that way. It feels as though we've been completely in the dark until the blindsided announcement was made to staff. I emailed my board members who represent my area, and I got a response from one, a generic from another, and no response from one. The one who responded, I've not received any answers to my previous email. I also found out my original email was being sent to others within the community. I wanted transparency. I guess I got it, and so did everybody else. Kids at Arlington and really all of the schools have had an emotional 2 years, 3 in the school years, with COVID and protocols. They were shut off from friends, and once we could attend school, they had restrictions. In the area that serves Arlington was hit by a tornado. These kids have been through an emotional ringer. Now you decide to add on closing their school, separating them from friends, teachers, and staff that they know and trust. You cannot even assure them that they will still be friends, as 302 students don't have a school right now. In fact, the board told us at the last meeting they don't have a plan. When I hear that, I hear no plan for the school, no plan for redistricting, and no plan for staffing. A question of if there would be a separate entrance couldn't even be answered at the last board meeting. However, some state on social media that they know exactly what the plan will look like. Sounds like people do know what the plan is, and if they do, it's not being communicated to the community. How can we plan for our children's future if we don't even know what the future is? As a parent, I just do not understand how you can close a top-performing school. Arlington was second in our district, and according to PublicSchoolReview.com, in the 2018 and 19 year, they were the top 10% overall for test scores. Students achieved proficiency in math is 65%, the Kentucky average is 46%. It also states that EES ranks in the top 10% of all 1,263 elementary schools in Kentucky based off combined math and reading proficiency and for the 2018-19 school year. And you're taking away a school that boasts excellent teachers, amazing staff, motivated and caring administration. You are taking away class size and putting more students in a room. You are taking kids who have excelled in a smaller environment and putting them into a larger school. Will issues of bullying become more prevalent? How will that affect academic standings if teachers have larger class sizes? How will this affect traffic flow? Southside already has an issue with cars having to park on the highway and the entrances flooded. Why is the maintenance on these buildings not being kept up when I know there are schools that are older than Arlington in the whole school district? I'd asked how you become a parent on the committee to a board member. I didn't ever receive a response. We already feel as though our concerns are not heard. My question is what is the KBE and the board going to do about it? Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Sharver. Ms. Oglesby. Tessa Oglesby.
My name is Tessa Oglesby. I'm a fourth grade student at Arlington, and I also have an adopted ninth grade son at Central. I have several concerns regarding the district facilities plan. In the last meeting, I felt as if our words fell upon deaf ears, and by the looks on the faces, you could care less. That is not the job taxpayers pay you to do. The money is quite obviously going to the north end as usual, and this new, which is not a new school, it is an addition to a school. You want to give us, it's just a collateral to a piece of budget. Not one of the board members has said how this will benefit our children, other than the pretty flyer that sent from last week, which had grammatical errors, but that's beside the point. Not one single parent or school employee that I have spoken with personally thinks that any of this is a good idea. The approved DFP in 2019 allocated for renovations to both Arlington and Southfield. I would like to know what changed. Why uproot our kids, have to redistrict, add bus drivers that you don't even have now? When you can renovate it, just leave us alone. If our buildings are in such dire need, then why is $6 million being spent on central offices and training facility, and another $6 million on a swimming pool? Also, I've searched what I can online, and I cannot find public record of the architect's full report. If this is a public record, I would ask that someone email that to me where I can find that information. Otherwise, I have spoken with council, and I will be seeking the Freedom of Information Act. It's my hope that the KDE will not allow this plan to be approved as it stands. I cannot and I will not sit back and watch this board once again put my children last. I hope and pray that when elections come around, we have some new board members. We need representation from parents that are affected by this and the decisions that are going to be made based on this for years to come. And I will also be speaking with other parents about the Freedom of Information Act and obtaining public records.
Thank you, Ms. Oglesby. Ms. Edwards. Carrie Jo Edwards.
Good evening. My name is Carrie Jo Edwards. I did submit a full written report, comments, because I did refer to some math and some things that I actually illustrated in my full comment. I am a concerned parent of a second grader and a fourth grader who attend Arlington. I could give a lengthy discourse on how amazing our school is and the extraordinary care, time, and effort that each teacher, administrative staff provide every single day. But I am going to try to focus on facts and discrepancies that I have seen within the plan as far as the information you can get. As Katie mentioned, and is cited in the minutes from the meeting from February 10th, when asked for evidence that Arlington should be shut down permanently, the architect Justin Knucklepress responded that this is difficult, unprofessional judgment, and aging of building systems. From that, we are to take that the amended plan is based mostly or solely on architectural and financial reasons, decided upon by professionals that have no experience in education. This was the evidence that is given to shut down a school that, as others have referenced, is number 69 of 838 in elementary schools in Kentucky by U.S. News and World Report. and the Public School Review was giving a 10 out of 10 rating in top 10% in Kentucky elementary schools, despite over 75% of the student population being considered economically disadvantaged. When looking into the Kentucky Schools Facilities Planning Manual, Section 52.9.1 states that the amended DFP shall be reviewed by the Kentucky Board of Education using the same process required for approval of a new DFP. Section 103.4 then shows that the LPC is responsible for research using data consistent with the following: student assessment material, transportation information, physical information, instructional information, and demographics. When this amendment changed and these huge changes were made to shut down schools, this data changed. As far as I can see in any of the plans or any of the public information, none of the data was redone. This means that these amendments are not based on any of the relevant or required data. APA itself states must be considered. Like I said, these are not small changes, these are not renovations. As much as we want to call them additions, they are not additions. These are huge, momentous changes that are directly impacting over 1,200 students in our district, as well as indirectly affecting all students and school zones and creating an entirely new school and a new educational system. Consideration of the academic performance, enrollment projections, transportation concerns were never considered for this amended plan. To go into just a couple of the numbers, like I said, that are in my full comments that I won't take time to read all of them. It has been shown that the projection of the new school is to be capacity of 907 students. Current enrollment for Southside and South Middle totals 864. This is a difference of 43 students. That is the number of students out of Arlington Elementary that could be sent to this new school. An estimated 300 plus will be shifted to other schools, which indicates that there will be a need to redistrict all elementary into these systems. There has been no mention or any plan established to the schools or the parents to do this. This lack of attention and planning is dismissive of the population of students that is already statistically at a disadvantage. Further examination reveals even more discrepancies and questions. I have a chart on the back page, again in my full notes, but you can see that the math within the DFP does not account for redistricting. It is actually dismissive for over 350 students that make up the current enrollment. We've already been reminded of the hardships that many went through in December. Many are still living with other families in temporary situations in hotels. And now they've been told that their school is going to be shut down, which for many was the only place of solace and support during that time. Meanwhile, this plan is being presented as a pretty new free school, but it will not be for them. And most of us here are representing that group that will not be for. That part will just have to be figured out later. That's what we've been told. Because the DFP is concerning facilities. Also, reviewing the differentials for each school as far as capacity range, changing school attendance zones to place each elementary at capacity would still leave a number of students unaccounted for. We are leaving this community to hope for the best and leaving a considerable window to fall between the cracks with no plan to prevent failure. This amended plan fails the community and the children from it. Furthermore, if we were to look at these other elementary schools and their capacities, we can see through the KDE guidelines that classroom is based on an enrollment, one classroom for 25 students. With this plan, if we were to put these students in other elementaries, they would be new classrooms. 0 new classrooms have been added to Grapevine, Jesse Stewart, Pride, West Monday, or Hanson. With none of these included, one is to assume there is a lack of planning or budgeting to stay within the KDE guidelines. And this plan is creating problems for which no one in this district has given any answers. The only other option, as far as rezoning, would send Arlington students to West Hopkins. This school does have a capacity for approximately 200 more students, but is not equipped for such change. Logistical difficulties such as bus travel, the rural remote location, and sending Arlington students 15 or more miles on rural roads is just part of the problem. Increased transportation expenses and needs involved in this option have not been factored in, which is completely illogical considering our district is already extremely short on bus drivers. Lengthy bus ride times are already an issue. This would add an extra route on rural roads. Also, this does not put any consideration into the detriment of educational outcomes and attendance issues that could occur when a school moves from a neighborhood where many are in walking distance, and the school students must now ride a bus for what would likely be an hour or more just to reach school. This is not an option that we want for my children. Also, from a logistical standpoint, as I mentioned, but also from an educational standpoint, not to point fingers at West Hopkins because I know people personally, not due to want or work or effort from teachers or families, but this is the only P-8 model that we have had in this district. It is not shown to be successful in medical outcomes. The only evidence of how our district supports and runs with P-8 is not one that would be desirable to duplicate or to add to their students to make that capacity. Performance is rated below expectations in reading and math for all grades. And again, it's not due to lack of effort, but pushing this school to capacity would be irresponsible without a solidified plan and commitment to resources to improve educational outcomes. No consideration in the current plan is made for this. Just a few other numbers that are an issue to me. The current South Middle School is almost 70,000 square foot. The addition, which is to be all for middle school, is projected to be at 33,000, a decrease of space by over 50%. I'm not sure how they expect this to be feasible for the number of students that are looking to fit in there. Also, as I stated about calculating capacity, the facility's manual defines calculating capacity of the number of students. It's in middle school or high school by taking the base capacity, 25 multiplied by the number of classrooms divided by 0.75. Also, I have written into just telling anyone.
Ms. Edwards, we're going to ask you to wind up as soon as you can, please.
Absolutely. So the calculated capacity of 9 classrooms gives 300 middle school students. Currently, in South, there are over 400. So this is not accounting for 121 that are currently enrolled in middle school. Also, to quickly mention, there is nothing listed for site development, road access, parking, additional restrooms, locker rooms, cafeteria, or kitchen. So this would be these spaces, and this is not accounted for in the budget and would be expected to be shared with the elementary school. That's basically all I'll touch on. It is being advertised as having all the benefits without the cost, which never happens. I have contacted my local board of education members with no response. But quoting one response to a Southside parent, this plan is the least upsetting to the community. It will not be an issue and will not change transportation at all. This will affect Arlington. As a parent of Arlington, I know it will affect us. And we would all appreciate some answers to our plans and to see the discrepancies of these plans taken care of. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Edwards. That's the last person I have signed here. Is there anyone else that would like to speak? Give us your full name, please.
My name is Stephanie Martin. I have a son, Carlos, who is a first grader at Arlington. Not come prepared to speak today, but I just felt like I needed to. So, he's only been at Arlington since October because we had just moved a month before the tornado hit, and we lost everything in it. And Arlington has been the first school he's been to that he felt fine going to. He feels great every morning going to school. Every school he's been to, he wakes up in the morning and he cried. He said he hated school. He didn't want to go. Doesn't do that anymore. Loves it there. His grades have went up. He's going to pass first grade this year because of it, because of Arlington. So, what I wanted to talk about with you guys is my job as a reentry coordinator with the state is all about change, but it's about accepting change. It's about being on board with it, recognizing it, and wanting it. And given the opinions of the community, parents, and even some of the workers, do you really believe that your plan can be successful if there are so many opposing parts? Even if financially it works, your schools have to maintain the quality of education, the quality of the psyche of the students and of the parents in order for it to be successful. And if these negative viewpoints continue, there's no hope in that. Thank you.
Are there any other comments? Thank you, Ms. Martin. Are there any other comments? Hearing no other. Okay. Mr. Klein?
I do want to make an announcement on behalf of the Board of Education, as they have asked me to announce that on March 14th at 5:30 p.m. at South Hopkins Middle School, they will have a town hall meeting for questions and answers to answer those questions and address any concerns. Again, that is March 14th at 5:30 at South Hopkins Middle School, a town hall type meeting as I'm delivering a message from our board.
I have a question about that. I think there's been a lot of questions asked here tonight in all the presentations. So you guys look at all the questions that have been answered without everyone having to go to the live again and start all over again. Will you take those questions and give us the answers then without it having to be repeated and repeated?
We have the public hearing report, so we have a record of everything that's been said. So we have access to that even after we leave tonight. The board will have that in front of them at a board meeting as well. So they will have all that information. So we will do our best to make sure that they have the answers to those questions prior to that day.
Well, I'd like to see it in a form, like this question was asked. This is our answer to it. For we can, you know how when you hear everything all at once, it kind of goes in and out. But if you have the questions that were asked, and then you say this is our answer, take notes and maybe understand what you're trying to tell us better.
Will the town hall have minutes like a regular meeting before?
I mean, we can take notes for it.
I think that, because a lot of parents can't make it. They have to work at night, whatever. And I think to make the information accessible to everyone, that would be something to consider.
I say those are obviously options. I don't want to speak for the board on that part because that is not my role. I'm not a board member, but I can tell you that those are options we have available, much like they are tonight. We have it being videoed and archived and recorded. So we have those opportunities, and we've been placing a lot of this information the same way on our website. You've seen the recordings of all the other meetings and minutes and things to be available. So I don't see why we couldn't do that moving forward.
To add on to what she said with the transparency, asking for any questions to be answered in a form, it needs to be in something like how we came in today, and we could get the minutes from before, and we could get what was sent home in the back as well. Because you don't want to be, there doesn't need to be repetitiveness of the same question being asked over and over in a town hall meeting. We need to be able to come in, be able to see those questions that have already been previously asked with a question, because there might be a follow-up question that needs to be asked for clarification, so that the board is not bombarded with the same question over and over that's been asked. So they would be asked or answered prior to
I'll just add to Ms. Graves and to you, Ms. Groves, I'm sorry. I'm from Graves. Apologize for that. Ms. Groves and Ms. McLaughlin. There are many points made here tonight in the report, in the comments made. It's not answered to. And there won't be an answer to until they get further into the process. You know, how would we know today how long a particular child might ride the bus or how many buses that it might take? This is really early in the process. Just understand that. Are there any other?
So if you approve plan, move forward with it, well, I mean, but now that you're moving forward with it, at what point do you say that that's unreasonable, that the accommodations that you have to make this happen are unreasonable to the children? Because already my son has to ride the bus for an hour and 15 minutes to get to school in the morning. To Arlington.
We live within the Arlington district.
And we live in Arlington district.
I'm sorry, I don't have the answer to that. Again, as I said very early on in my presentation, hearing officer's part is not to sway you in any way, shape, form, or fashion. I'm just conducting a hearing. But I felt like I must say that there are some questions being asked that we won't know the answers to until this process moves forward.
LPC is a voted position, correct? It's elected.
The LPC is made up of 20 members.
How are they brought onto that board?
There is a specific way, and I'll tell you exactly how it is. It's made up of one, you might want to follow this up until I get to 20. It's made up of one facilities director from the district. It's made up of one school board member that is selected by the school board themselves. It is made up of 4 parents.
Selected how?
I'll tell you that in a second. 4 parents, 4 principals, 4 administrators, and 4 teachers. And so if you have, let's say you have 12 schools, then each school must be represented before a school can be represented 2 times. So every school must be represented. If you look on there, when this was done back in, I would venture to say the fall of 2018, then there were 4 teachers, 4 administrators, or 4 administrators, 4 parents, 3 community people. There was a central office person. The superintendent is on that committee, and he or she is ex officio. That means they do not have a vote. The facility director is on that committee. A local planning zoning official is on the committee. I have a copy here. I'll be glad to send it to you. I think you have that before you there. But to tell you exactly how that was done in 2018, I can't tell you that. But I will tell you this. When it was completed, it was sent to the State Department of Education for their approval. You have to live in the district. If somebody doesn't live in the district, we have to get a waiver from that. There's all kinds of little hoops that must be jumped through. They just didn't get up one morning and say, we're going to appoint a committee today. You have to follow those guidelines. Okay, well, that group, as every group, it's a 4-year job, if you will. So I believe your will be in 23. You'll have to submit a new facility plan, and so probably this late summer or fall, a new committee will be selected. I'm speaking out of term, but that's the way it works.
Generally speaking, that's the process.
That's the
and
process.
I do want to remind you that Mr. Galloway did a video that is on that website, and he goes through this process. I think it outlines that very thing, so if you need to go back and check on it again to make sure, I think he took us through that same process that he was explaining just then, so you have it for your records if you need to go back and refer to it. in that process. That is on that website in the video that he did.
Video also tells how parents on that committee or get on the committee.
I really can't remember how depth it went.
I think it's for the issue that we don't feel that our end of the county has representation on that committee. Because we don't know, I mean, I'm there with 3 of the parents now. I know that none of us really do it on our end.
I can tell you, I wanna.
I'm more curious as to how you would get on.
Sure, and it's different for each of those positions, and I don't have that in my head right now, but I can tell you the same facilities manual that Ms. Edwards was referencing outlines that process in detail. It does it by specific position. Parents are
It's on the web.
suggested this way.
It's on the KDE website. Anyone else want to address the group?
Sure.
Yes.
I'm not a member of your committee, but may I speak as a board member?
Sure. I'm not going to tell you.
We're going to document you on the record here.
Yeah.
I just want to share that I understand why many of you feel that it may not look transparent. That's one of the reasons why we're hosting this question and answer session, so that you're able to express your concerns and we will do our best to answer them. The challenge in a school board meeting or even in this type of forum is that we don't have the ability to answer and have that open forum. So that is our intent on the 14th, is to have open dialogue, have respectful open dialogue. We truly, as a board, are doing everything we can to represent the entire county. It is tough decisions that we are making, and they're not decisions that we find to be easy decisions or decisions that we enjoy. But please understand, we're trying to do what we believe is what's best for all of our children in the entire county. And just to give you just an over brief example of where we sit right now, is that our property taxes are quite high. We recognize that. We pay taxes just like everybody else does. The challenge, though, is we have a property tax and we have no other tax. And I get it, that no one wants any other tax. So we are one of 6 school systems in the state that does not have utility tax. So we get our revenue from that property tax, and we don't get the combined revenue from the utility tax. So back in the day when the utility tax came up for decision-making across the state, Hopkins County and Muhlenberg County, for example, chose not to, because we had a large coal mining severance that we were able to acquire. Well, obviously, we no longer have that luxury, so we don't get that revenue anymore. But now we're one of 6 that doesn't have a utility tax. So yes, our property tax is high, but considering what other school systems have, we're one of the lowest in taxable income across the state because we don't have that combined amount. And we're sensitive to that. We don't want to keep raising property tax. I don't like paying them any more than you do. And so what we have to do is do our best with our fiduciary responsibility of keeping our costs in line, but most importantly, operate in a fashion that we provide high quality education. Another challenge is our population continues to decline. Coal mining is shutting down, our population is declining about 3% a year. And so what we see today, or what we even saw 2 years ago, are less kids in the seats. There's just less of us in our county. The challenge with that is that we are operating more schools than most districts our size. We have several schools that we're just empty. We've got to find a way. I think we're averaging maybe 70%. Don't hold me on that, but I think the last we chatted, across our system, we're at about 70%. So imagine the amount of utilities we're paying, staffing, and so on and so forth of what we are paying for many classrooms that have empty seats. As a board member representing you, we wouldn't be doing our job if we just let that happen because we're asking for you to pay your taxes for us to pay for MPCs and the utilities that go with that. So unfortunately, based on everything that we know, our population will continue to decline unless something significant changes that. And so we have to prepare for the future. And these are some of the difficult decisions that we are attempting to make. So we invite everyone to come and have the questions you've asked, and we will do our best to answer those questions. And any other questions that come up on the meeting on the 14th, we will do everything we can to answer them. But please understand, we are not trying for kids to be on a bus for an hour and a half or an hour. We're hoping that it's even less than that, that we come up with strategies that will make our system more efficient. We're not saying it's going to be easy. We know that if your kid walks to school in Arlington, you're not going to be a happy parent. We understand that. Also understand, we have approved the plan. We've just approved the plan. We've not approved any new project to implement that plan. We've just approved the plan. That I believe we'll go back to KDE to say yes, or is that already happened?
It won't, since we didn't make any changes, it will not have to go back to KDE anymore until you put your final stamp on it.
So your comments are not falling on deaf ears. You still have the opportunity to share your input as you've done tonight. That's why John and I are sitting here. Hear what you have to say. That's why we're taking notes. We want to hear your input. We're doing everything we can to represent you. Please understand that. These are hard decisions. We want to make the right decision. We want to care for every kid in every classroom. We want to protect our teachers, our administrators. Burlington and its Southside that they do a tremendous job. And we're just trying to make things efficient. And it's just a formula that if we don't do it now, it will truly be an inherited disaster.
So why on the south end of the county? That's just, you've got a school that's the way it's been for 20 years. Yeah, it's always been like that, but it's not right.
I can tell you, I live on the north side, and I take it sensitive, and John and I have talked about this.
I live where you're elected, my child goes, but you aren't elected. You're appointed.
Well, I'm appointed this time, I was elected. I was elected.
I went to the north end of the county school, but I was in school.
What I'm saying to you though is that we looked at all the schools and the ones that were in the greatest need. We truly did. Every school was analyzed. Every school was looked at from the architectural perspective, from the needs assessment. Every school was evaluated. That was part of the process. So we did look at that. We are not biasing on the south end of the county.
I know you may not be able to answer due to the forum, but was it discussed as a possibility to build on the south side, combine south side and south Hopkins, and leave Arlington open for renovation? That was never a possibility, or could it be a possibility?
Our goal was to try to eliminate some of the 17 buildings that we got. The first plan we looked at, this one closes 2 schools. The first plan that we looked at closed 4 schools and moved our high school. We don't want to do that. We don't want to do that. We chose to do something that we felt like was good for the south end of the county. We're going to end up dumping $15 million in the south end of the county. Nothing's been done on the south end of the county for 20 years. So this is going to improve the south end of the county. We're looking. I see you shaking your head, but it really is. If you look at this with an open mind, it is going to improve the south end of the county. Anytime you've done $15 million in the south end of the county, there has to be improvements. So I know that.
Well, I don't think that structural improvements equate to quality education and atmosphere and the attention a student would get with their teachers and the amount of transportation they take. I don't think they equate.
If I want my kindergarten to go to school in 8th graders, then I would put it away.
Well, your kindergartner's not going to go to school in 8th grader.
My kindergarten will when you decide to move the elementary school to the south side.
Yeah. That's not going to happen. There's going to be things that are going to be put in place to keep those students separated. So your student, your kindergartner will not be in contact with 8th grade. This is not their stuff. So we are looking at ways to mitigate that.
that is the big thing in consideration as far as what we're doing here. So we're not gonna just allow acres to have to run the school, so, you know.
I have a question. I have a daughter, I told her, I'll live 1 mile outside of this, she has special permission. Will that still be, because it says now, that we don't have to fill out anything else? Will that be grandfathered in?
As far as, so, say that again, you have special permission to go to Arlington now, is that what you're saying?
I live 1 mile from the cutoff, and it's a lot easier for me to get to Arlington than it is to West Island.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't think that that's gonna be a, Ms. Smith, you can correct me if I'm wrong, I don't think that's gonna be an issue. We're not looking to redistrict
Well,
anybody.
whenever y'all say caps, she can't go. And it's gonna put everything to caps whenever y'all build this new school.
Yeah, but, yeah, Ms. Smith.
You will be, so with the special permission policy, once you have been given that, permission to go to that building, you are grandfathered in. That's just like, you don't have to fill out a new application for next year. If you already go to Arlington and are on special permission right now, you are grandfathered in for next year to go to Arlington as well. As long as you meet the requirements that are on that form that you fill out regarding your grades, your attendance, and your behavior. So that is not calculated into that 90% capacity, those numbers. Now, what it can do, because there's so many special permission in that school, it can close that school for anybody new to not be allowed special permission if you're 90% at capacity or higher.
So does that also include their siblings? Because as of right now, I have one daughter.
You don't have to keep up with that. This guy thing.
No, it does not include the siblings. You have to look at that enrollment of that school at that time, and that is evaluated at that time if they have capacity or not.
So our first grader, it would move her all the way up through 8th grade, if she would just kind of follow along in the new school.
When the new school is built, that is a new building.
So we would go to
So
the
when
new
it's
school.
we would have to look at the capacity of that building, but we would take all of that into consideration as who was already grandfathered in when we might take things.
So there's been zero discussion about sending any Burlington kid to West. I also ask that you keep in mind that we just approved it, right? We've not approved building a new building, we've not hired architects, we're only speaking to Hanson. This isn't something that's happening next year, probably even the year after that, it's gonna take some time. When you add on top of it, the pandemic and the contractor situation and how long it takes for things to happen, this isn't an overnight process. It's gonna take some time. So and on top of it, when you consider how things move through state government, that'll even slow down the piece of more. So please understand that this is not a quick process. And we have the opportunity to tweak it along the way, look at the transportation issues and make sure that kids aren't on a bus for a long period of time, to analyze the number of kids in each classroom. Our intent is not to pack classrooms with kids and increase the child to teacher ratio. That is not our intent. We're just trying to improve efficiency, but absolutely not decline the quality of education. You can adamant about that through the entire process. But I'd like you just to come on the 14th. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to sabotage this meeting, but I just wanted to say something because I respect your comments and your passion and the love that you have for your kids. I respect that. And we are truly trying to do the right thing. Come on the 14th, we'll have conversations so that hopefully we'll all have a better understanding of how everybody feels and what we're trying to accomplish. Thank you.
Much of the information, much of the conversation actually that we have had since the last speaker actually will not be in the record because it's not got anything to do with the hearing. We got away from the hearing. That's not what the hearing is about. The hearing is about listening to you when you sign up to do that. So, hearing report's not going to reflect those comments. your next meeting may very well reflect that. But if there are no other comments, I'm going to declare the meeting or the hearing, public hearing adjourned. So thank you for coming.